We're going to call this meeting to order for the April 17th. I'm reading my minutes from last night. May 1st. Reading the minutes, May 1st, 2025 for the Conejo Recreation and Park District Board of Directors regular meeting. We're going to start with our flag salute and with our special guest of this evening, Rick Tanaka, if you would please lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Now, if we could have the roll call, please.
Director Nichols.
Yes.
Director Cussworth.
Yes.
Director Huffer.
Yes.
Director Buss.
Yes.
Director Orozco.
Yes.
Thank you. And we have some special presentations tonight. And first is our Young Athlete Award. And who will be taking on that for us?
You guys are taking
all
the
right.
lead.
Director
You got
Huffer.
it.
Director Orozco. All right. Team effort up at the podium.
All right, we're ready. Good evening. CRPD has established two separate awards intended to recognize outstanding performances of Conejo Valley athletes, the Young Athlete Award and the Athletic Achievement Award. Tonight, we are privileged to be presenting the Young Athlete Award to a local athlete who has demonstrated excellence in her sport over the past year. The Young Athlete Award is a recognition of a single athlete under 18 years of age. You do qualify, right? Okay, all right. From any school or youth sports organization within the CRPD district boundaries who displayed exceptional athletic achievement in their sport within the school year. In the case of our athlete being recognized tonight, her high school assistant principal of athletics submitted a nomination form to the CRPD sports department. The nomination was recommended to the Athlete Recognition Program Committee for approval. The young athlete recipient that we will be honoring tonight is Mackenzie Holden for outstanding performance in indoor and beach volleyball. Mackenzie, if you'd come up to the podium.
A senior at Newbury Park High School, Mackenzie has shown extraordinary dedication and excellence in both girls' indoor volleyball and beach volleyball. Her athleticism, leadership, and unwavering character have made her a standout on and off the court, and most deserving recipient of the CRPD Young Athlete Award. In 2024 alone, Mackenzie earned a spot on the All Ventura County girls volleyball team and was named Student Athlete of the Month in October. Her impressive resume includes 2 selections to the All-Marymount League team for indoor volleyball and 1 for beach volleyball, achievements that speak to her versatility and commitment. This past fall, Mackenzie led her team all the way to the Division IV CIF Girls Volleyball Finals, and her outstanding play earned her a place on the All-CIF Division IV team. Mackenzie's coach praised her tireless effort and leadership, stating, quote, "As an outside hitter and team captain in the 11th and 12th grade, Mackenzie was undoubtedly the hardest working on the court, willing to dive and sacrifice her body to save plays, therefore leading by example. Her standout performances this season included 23 kills versus Notre Dame Academy, 6 aces versus Golden Valley, 3 blocks versus Oaks Christian, 30 digs versus Santa Monica."
So Mackenzie, on behalf of the Conejo Recreation and Park District, we would like to present you with this suitable for framing certificate honoring your selection and your accomplishments this year. And dare I open this? Is it safe? We have a very nice, hopefully it's not breakable, right? So if I accidentally drop it, a very nice trophy to recognize your accomplishments. So if you would like to say a few words, we would be grateful for you doing that.
Perfect. I'm truly grateful for this award, especially it's something I put so much time and effort into. volleyball has been such a life-changing sport. It's changed how I think, how I run, like everything. I want to thank my teachers for pushing me on and off the court, so I can open up new doors and new opportunities. I want to thank my parents for giving me all these crazy opportunities and allowing me to follow my dreams. To my friends, thank you for always being okay with me missing plans so I can go to practice and games. But thank you guys to this district as well for giving me this award. Thank you.
Congratulations, now that your hands are full.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Yeah, we do the whole board right in front of the,
Before you take off, I'm going to invite the board to say a few comments if they would. I'll start on my far right with Director Cussworth.
Well, congratulations. I love volleyball. My son played volleyball. He was too short to start, but then he grew 6 inches. So that helped. But it's a great sport. And it's always nice to see somebody that's spending a lot of time in being an athlete, improving your body and, strength and supporting your school. You do play for a school? Yeah. Yeah. Which school? You probably said it and I missed it. Newbury Park High School, great. Go Panthers. So congratulations. Thank you very much for being here.
Director
Yeah, again,
Roscoe, go ahead.
thank you, Chair. Congratulations. I think we had a question really quickly. What are your plans for next year? Wonderful. Wow, that's amazing. Such wonderful accomplishments. Again, congratulations.
Director Buss.
So I have to say, I absolutely love volleyball and I love that you play it. We used to play a lot and I never played in high school because of the height. I played soccer instead. But yeah, I love watching volleyball, especially beach volleyball. My girlfriend ended up marrying Phil Dahlhauser from playing. He's the beast from a while ago, way before you, way before your time probably. But yeah, so I just think it's so amazing, and especially juggling everything through high school and getting into a great university. Congratulations. And I would love to hear what you're doing in 5 years because I'm sure it will be amazing.
yeah, Mackenzie, just to repeat myself, congratulations. It's a great accomplishment. As Director Buss said, to be able to combine keeping up your grades and doing so well in school while being in athletics and being willing to take that on in college. I know young people who have done both, and it's a lot of work and a lot of dedication. So congratulations, and do keep up the good work.
Congratulations. Glad to see you making some success with your life. Obviously, you learn a lot of life lessons when you do competitive sports. You made a comment that kind of struck with me when you talked about having to be thankful for your friends who allowed you to not be at their events, which I'm sure there's been many times that has happened and it will continue to be that way. And that is part of the sacrifice. It's one thing to sacrifice your body. You do that for a choice, and it's only your body that gets banged up and bruised. But when you miss special events, you can sometimes bang and bruise other people's feelings. So it can be a little bit tough. So it's another one of those lessons. But obviously, that's something you will learn from and continue to strengthen yourself. And I mean, it's gotten you quite a ways so far and will only do better. So thank you for sharing your talents with our community. And I guess we'll just have to tune in some other way to find out what's going on in San Francisco. But best of luck in your life and in your education goals. But thank you for being here this evening. Yes. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the 2-hour agenda or
Who's that coach in the
Or-
back?
or go off to your next volleyball event, whatever that is. But thank you for being here this evening. Okay, continuing on with special presentations, we have this evening our staff from the Dos Vientos Community Center. And I don't know if they're going to take it right off or if there's someone else leading, but Rick, you're in charge. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go with it.
We shall bring our equipment with us. And I am going to ask Renee to take the lead, our newest coordinator. He's doing a fantastic job. Get us started.
Okay, good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Renee Bell. I'm the Recreation Coordinator at the Dos Vientos Center.
And I'm the recreation supervisor at the Dos Vientos Community Center.
Today we're going to talk about Dos Vientos and why it's so unique. So because of its geographic boundary, that large hill going up Orchard Road into Dos Vientos, it really creates a pocket community in Dos Vientos, its own community within Newbury Park, within Thousand Oaks. So it's very secluded, tight knit. The neighbors know each other, and they know us here at DVC. Dos Vientos does programming from early childhood all the way to seniors and really everything in between. Today, we're going to focus on the success of our staff programming.
So we have some amazing programs at the Dos Vientos Community Center. Many of them are taught by contract instructors. We have Monarchs does gymnastics, tumbling, quite an array of programs that take place over there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have Elaine Lawrence. She's been doing senior aerobics programs over there for decades. Rebecca Woolley, she specializes in infant and parent and me programs, helping to prepare those young ones for, maybe starting preschool in a few years. These are just a few of the hundreds of contract instructors that we, CRPD, use throughout the district. Their specialization is fantastic, but they have specific scope and availability. Our contractors are wonderful, but tonight we want to take a closer look at the essential front lines of CRPD operations. Not only do they answer phones, set up for user groups, take care of registration, they also plan, prepare for, and run countless recreation program opportunities for our community.
One of our longest lasting staff-led programs is our preschool with Miss Pat. Her early childhood career began in 1994 at the Thousand Oaks Community Center. In 2002, when the Dos Vientos Center was established, she came to the Dos Vientos Center and has been here ever since. She's a staple in our community in Dos Vientos, has a very good and well-known reputation. Many families come back time and time again because of her lasting impact on them. Even with the Conejo Valley Unified School District offering free preschool programs and classes, we still have full classes with her, which really goes to show the impact that she has on the students and the family.
Well, I'll tell you, Renee, those preschool programs are wonderful, but we can't stay in those programs forever. We do have to move on eventually. One of the things that many of our participants move on to are adventure clubs. Have you heard of these? They are amazing. Adventure clubs are essentially mini camps that take place during school break times. We have spring break, winter break, and coming up beyond that, summer break, where we've got 9 weeks of youth that are looking for active, engaging activities to participate in. These are for kids ages 5 to 12, do a mix of games, sports, crafts, water play, and hikes. The average is 15 to 30 kids per club, but it can go up high as high as 50 kids, and it often does. It's a popular program. The staff are encouraging and engaging, always introducing kids to new programs, new activities, new ideas of how they can participate in positive recreation. No child's left alone. Staff uses tried and true methods to get everyone engaged. Staff are involved, leading these games and activities, participating, guiding by example. This is just another one of the many staff programs. What else are we doing?
One of our current thriving programs is our Friday Fun Night. It started as a parents' night out event, and we've been hosting it once a month for quite a while, about a year. This is a Friday fun night for kids to get out at the community center, hang out with their friends, do crafts, play games, bounce in the bounce house, slide down the slide, go on hikes, have dinner, all while in a safe and fun environment. Our staff thoroughly enjoys planning these programs and these theming them for different holidays, Easter and Christmas and so on and so forth. We even had our last one fell on Valentine's Day. The one in February fell on Valentine's Day. So we did a Valentine's Day one for that. Staff create and lead these programs in their entirety, and they've been a hit.
How much of a hit have they been?
They have been a great hit. They, it started in 2023, late 2023. You know, as any program, it takes a while to get started, but it has been flourishing. It started off with 30 kids at our max. We eventually upped it to 40, and then again up to 50 in the last few months because of the popularity of this program. We have brought in more staff to accommodate them, so we keep the program quality. And we have a lot of repeat participants. They come back because they know Orion, our rec leader. They know Heidi, our rec aide, and they recognize them from program to program. And so it is a community that they flourish inside of the Dos Vientos Center.
Thank you, Renee. So we've talked about preschool, we've talked about pop-up events, we've talked about like club camp type programs. We also have your run-of-the-mill recreation programs. These usually run about 6 to 8 weeks per session. And one of our most popular ones is Weird Science. Now, you might be thinking, what, science, isn't that like a scholastic program? Isn't that, these kids are out of school now. Do they really want to go back into a science class? Well, yes, they do. In fact, these programs are tremendously popular. Again, the staff are taking the lead on these programs. They create a forecast that lasts the session. They're reviewed by Renee and myself, but they're developing it themselves. They're doing the planning, the prep, and running these programs. They take ownership of it. They've got creative freedom with guidance, responsibility for success, and the pride of the outcome. These classes consist of usually a game, a craft, and an experiment. Some hits have been the egg drop, you've heard of that, dissecting DNA from a strawberry, and food science, like using rock salt and heavy whipping cream to create ice cream. I mean, who doesn't like ice cream? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. So the program started in 2023, and similar to other first-time programs, it might take a little bit of time to build up. It picks up a following. But once it did, it has been pretty consistent. You can see by this chart that we have just started low, steadily stayed, actively filling up classes essentially. And the popularity has grown so much that most recently we've had to add a second class to fill the need of the community. So this current session, we've got 2 back-to-back Weird Science classes going, one right after another. And the staff are just so happy that the program that they're running is just successful. The community embraces it. So we ask ourselves, why are we successful? Why are these programs successful? Renee, could you tell us?
In short, it's because of our staff. Not only do we have staff that's incredibly dedicated, caring, and creative, but this is their community as well. Many of our staff live in and grew up in the Dos Vientos and Newbury Park area. They've already have an established relationship with this community. They've attended programs through CRPD, preschool, after school, sports. They volunteered and now they work here. Some of our staff even attended Miss Pat's preschool. So many of them have pride in this community and they want to give back to this community as they once got to experience. They create long-lasting relationships with the participants, so much so, like they mentioned, they know their names and the staff knows the children's name, the local kids' names, and they know their names as well. So they trust and they know the staff, so they come back time and time again.
But how do we really know that the public love these programs? So glad you asked. It's the surveys that we're sending out at the end of each session. These are direct quotes from some of the survey cards. You can see my 2 kids absolutely love this camp and the counselors. They never want to come home. They really enjoy it. My girls loved the experiments they did in Weird Science. These are direct quotes from the public of how these Dos Vientos programs are being received by the public that we serve. and it's all done by our team. This team is dedicated just to providing top-notch service to the community that we serve. Thanks so much. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I don't know about all questions, but I'm sure we're gonna have some comments along with there. I'm
Wonderful.
gonna start to my left now with Director Huffer.
Renee and Rick, thank you so much for the information. I know that you were just scratching the surface on what Dos Vientos has to offer to our community. But to learn some of the details about the things you do from preschool, it's certainly a testament to the program that you have, that even though it costs a little bit of money, although it's certainly reasonable compared to some of the private preschools, but that there are free offerings available, and the people still signing up, I think is pretty incredible. It says a lot for your preschool teacher or teachers. So I love the idea of the Friday fun night. It's been a few years since I had kids of that age, but it's wonderful for the parents to be able to get away for a few hours, maybe have a date night while the kids have their fun night. And based on the numbers you were showing, it's nice to see that it's becoming so popular. The weird science, I think it's great, although I can't imagine what's scientific about dropping an egg. I do that fairly regularly, so I mean that can't be very
They're
difficult.
trying not to let the egg break.
Okay. There are some qualifiers on that then. And toward the end, you mentioned that what makes the program successful, the staff, it's amazing what you folks are able to do with a relatively small number of people, but the ideas they come up with is pretty amazing. Some of these weird science things that they've been coming up with. And throughout the district, it's the people, it's the staff that are making CRPD what it is and why it's so popular. And I think particularly in the Dos Vientos area, my impression is that it's sort of like an extended family, that you have kids coming back to camps, you have parents coming back to the programs, and you get to know them and they get to know you folks. So for everything you do in Dos Vientos, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Director Buss.
Yes, thank you so much. Those programs look amazing. I was really curious about the weird science stuff. I was like, oh, those look super fun. So the Friday fun night, I'm curious, what are the hours for it?
5:30 to 8:30.
Oh, I bet you so many parents are like, can't you just keep them till 10? Maybe it's just me. Okay.
Not bad for the next planning session.
Right. But yeah, no, you're doing an awesome job. And thank you for making us look so good in the community for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Director Orozco.
Yes, thank you so much for the great presentation. I know I'm doing my round of site visits and looking forward to coming by to the Dos Vientos Community Center. For a long time, that was my community center, and my parents still live in Dos Vientos, and so I always see the signs for the fun night and all the different activities that you guys have going on there. So it's nice to get a little sneak peek of what's happening. I was just curious, was there something that triggered the development of both of these programs in 2023, or is it just when we started collecting data, or I was just curious?
We have an advisory committee that meets regularly, and we bring in community feedback that
Yeah.
way. And they come up with, sort of a roundtable discussion of what they'd like to see tried out at the center. And these have been some of the successful items that have come from those meetings.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And like Director Buss said, our staff really are what makes CRPD so great. So thank you so much for your continued good works.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Cussworth.
So it sounds like you really are a hub for the community out there, because it does take a little bit of effort to get out to Dos Vientos. So I think that's really nice that they have an area where they can gather. And as far as the egg drop goes, at Redwood Junior High at one time, they did an egg drop every year. And with my oldest daughter, it was pretty unsuccessful, but by my fifth child, we knew how to do it. Yeah, because they had seen enough of them. So I have the key to egg drop on what works. So but that was a highlight for my kids. They loved doing that. It's pretty exciting. I was wondering, what are the ages for the family fun night?
We are going from 6 to 14.
Yeah, I was gonna say
6 to 14?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a 6-year-old grandson and a 13-year-old granddaughter. I think I'll pass that on. Or maybe when I'm watching them, I'll just pass that on. We may do that. We watch them a lot on the weekends, so that might.
So as you probably noted, it's a pretty wide age range, but we have so many participants that we're able to break them up into, corresponding age groups in order to participate in the different programs. But some of the programs, they participate quite well amongst themselves. Also, we have siblings of different ages that all want to participate in this program. So that's why that wide range has worked out well for that program.
Well, that's what I think is nice because if you're looking at a family who wants to get out, they don't want it just for the 8 and 9-year-old. They want to have it for a lot of the kids, and probably after 14, they can just leave them at home. So watching the kids. I had another question. Do you have any classes for seniors and adults?
We have a whole nother presentation specific to that.
Oh.
Yes, we do have quite a few successful senior and adult programs over there. One of them I mentioned, Elaine Lawrence is doing her outdoor core strength and stretch every Tuesday and Thursday. We've got yoga, we've got chair yoga, we've got women's drum circle. This is just to name a few. We have quite a few successful adult and senior programs taking place.
Women's drum circle. That sounds kind of exciting.
That's a popular one.
Do you have drums? Do you have to bring your own drum?
The instructor does provide some drums. Many prefer to bring their own drum.
I'll have to think about that one. You think I'd like
It's
that?
really fun. I sat in on one at the Global Center and it's very cool. Yeah.
Sounds right up my alley. I think
And
I think I'm a woman drummer.
And just to clarify, the senior and more adult type classes, those are specialty type classes. So they're taught by our contractors and not our staff.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to hear about what's going on at our different centers. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Doug.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the nuances of Dos Vientos. I know each center kind of has its own personality. I'm just curious, a couple of things. First is, you mentioned, Renee, that Dos Vientos is like a pocket neighborhood. With their participants, how many of them are from the pocket? How many are from down the hill?
I'd say a lot of our participants are within the Dos Vientos community. Of course, we get some down the hill in Newbury Park as well, but a lot of our participants are from Dos Vientos.
Okay. And then the second question was, I noticed in both of your programs that you were highlighting this evening, that you got a little runway where you enter the program and you get, 3 to 5 participants and, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. At one point, do you decide, hey, this isn't working, or, hey, we just need to give it a little bit more time? How do you make those decisions, and when do you consider it a success? Is it when you cover your expenses, or because people keep asking for it? What are those mechanisms that you use to say, yeah, let's keep doing this?
It's an excellent question. I mean, we really have to feel some sense of comfort in going in the first place because of the way our program guide development is laid out. When we present a program, let's say for spring, we won't know if that program is successful registration wise until we're already developing the fall program guide. So if we run it put it in spring, we feel like it's going to be successful. We already put it in summer, but we don't really know the results until we're already developing fall. So it really sort of gets a 2-session trial anyways. And then it really partly is the feedback from the participants itself. When we have people coming back, if we ran with a smaller number, participants are coming back saying, this is fantastic. I'm telling my friends, there's a solid chance that it's going to get greater registration as it continues to stay as an option.
Then my last question is, since you are kind of in that far corner of our community, probably not going to draw a lot of people from the Westlake area. They're not going to want to make that 30-minute drive across town. So with that in mind, do you try to really focus on what the Dos Vientos needs are, realizing that not that you really have a captive audience, but you kind of have that homegrown audience and you try to look at, well, what are these folks interested in and try to target that particular population.
We really do. We have the two communities that we are looking at from the Dos Vientos office. We are looking at our home base of operations, Dos Vientos community. We are also looking specifically at the Westlake community and what their interests are. So it is essentially two different markets, though I will say there are some similarities. So we can put cross efforts in play with the programs that we run.
Well, thank you so much, because I know it's quite a challenge. I mean, first of all, you got to keep things running, but then I know you're always kind of looking out there, you know, what's the next greatest thing? And obviously getting the feedback. I know we hear from Director Callis as far as, you know, the inputs, the surveys, you know, comments, which is always helpful. But it's up to you folks to actually make it happen. So thanks for doing that. Please pass along to your staff. Smiling faces up here for their efforts as well. And as was mentioned here, thanks for making us look good too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your support. We can't do it without you.
Can I clap?
Please.
Okay. All right, that brings us items from the public. I see, I have no cards. I don't see anyone else in the audience. Do we have anyone waiting online that wants to speak that you can tell? Rick, we see a Rick online. If you are interested in speaking to the board, please let us know. Maybe he wants to go rah grandpa or something. Okay, with that, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. If there are any changes, let us know. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is approved. Next, we have consent calendar for our minutes and warrants. Do we have any comments, criticisms otherwise, or a motion to approve? Yes, Dr. Huffer.
I move approval of consent calendar A, approval of minutes from the April 17th meeting, and B, approval of warrants.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I do have one comment, and I made mention of this to staff before we got started here. I just wanted to clarify, I saw that we had duplicate pages of items listed 1 through 15 of the warrants, and I just want to make sure that those in fact were duplicates and that looking at pages 1 through 15 once was enough and that there wasn't more than that. Is that correct? Okay. All right, then I'm good. All right, so we have motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those get approved. All right, next we go to deferred matters. And we have a, if you could please read this item into the record for us, Madam Clerk.
Public hearing, preliminary budget fiscal years 2025-26 and 2026-27, and proposed operating budgets fiscal years 2025-26 and 2026-27.
Thank you very much. And since this is a public hearing, I'm going to open the public hearing. And I will pass this on to Director Smith for introducing this well, I don't know, introducing it. We've heard it many times, but carrying forward with this.
Yes, thank you. So good evening, Chair and board members. Let me make sure I can get this going for you. So first I'm going to say, yes, we had some page order mix up, but you did get all of the budget information. So feel free, you didn't get bad information. You got it all just in a mixed up order. So my apologies for that. But also I'm not going to go through every single number and every single page. That would be hours and hours, and that's not what we want to do. But my general plan for tonight is to go over how we do our budget, what staff did to put into this budget, and then just some samples of what you're looking at and how to read what's in the packet, and then open it up for questions and discussions going forward. So, but feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. I know it can come up. Okay, let me make sure I'm not doing too much crazy. Okay. So our budget is a 2-year budget. It's a 2-year process. All divisions participate. So I'm going to go through how the staff contributed to this budget, and it's structurally balanced, meaning we account for revenue sufficient to cover all the expenses that we are planning. This is the budget calendar we gave to you all in January. The staff deadlines are on the left, the board meetings are on the right. So first, I'm going to go over where we are on the board side. So back in March, we had our preliminary budget where it was a replica of the current year budget and merely to get spending authority as of July 1. Since then, we've had our public hearings at every single board meeting, and we're right on schedule with tonight being our proposed operating budget. So what do I mean by an operating budget? And I don't expect you to read this. It's just so you can reference the pages. So if you look at that CRPD funds cheat sheet that I think we put on the table for everybody, and you've seen it a few times, tonight for the operating budget, we're only covering a few of those items. So these are the things that are our operating expenses for every single year. I'm going to narrow it down to these, but they're on your cheat sheet. So we've got the general fund. The main revenue sources there are property tax revenue, recreation revenue, and contributions from our partner agencies. And it covers the bulk of our day-to-day expenses, including our maintenance and things like that. Dos Vientos, the revenue is the assessments and general fund contributions towards ad valorem or capital. The primary expenses there are mostly operating with a small amount towards capital. Rancho Conejo, similar situation, assessments and a little bit of general fund to contribute to those capital projects. The bulk of the expenses are operating with a little bit for capital. Then the district-wide assessment, again, the revenue is the assessment itself and some general fund contributions. There's very minimal operational expenses in there. It is the primary driver for our capital projects. And so Andrew's going to be talking about capital at our next meeting. And so I'm just covering the operating portion of all of these funds going forward. And then finally, we've got the equipment reserve, which is on a schedule every year to be used. So those are the ones that are included tonight. All of the capital items are going to be at the next board meeting. So what does the staff do? So back in January, we gave preliminary budgets to all of our staff, all of our supervisors, with kind of draft numbers for them to look at as well as the history, and I'm going to give you an example of that. We then had our Tuesday meeting that's with all of our supervisors to explain the budget process and what we want from them when we're doing our meetings. In February, we had every work unit supervisor and sometimes coordinators meet with Andrew, Rochelle, me, and Jim to discuss their unit's needs and their proposed budgets. And then any changes or final requests or versions were due to us in March so we could compile it all together for you. So the first thing that I brought up to staff is post-COVID budget to actuals variances. So COVID was weird, inflation was weird, and our budget to actual numbers were weird for the last few years. So what happens normally is we would look at the history of the last 3 years of expenses and revenues and try to gauge where we should budget. The last 3 years are wacky and do not help you do that. So I wanted to show you this. You don't have to pay too much attention to the numbers, but each of those lines represents a division and how off their budgets were. And so there's no trend you can get from that information. I did look into them all to see if there was a trend, and there is a perfectly reasonable explanation for every single one of those, but nothing that's going to help us going forward. So what we wanted to do is find a way to kind of stabilize those things with it when we didn't have a reliable history over the last few years to use. So we said, let's start with the most recent full year of actual numbers spent and actual revenues received. Then we're going to have some basic assumptions. So the last full year of actuals we have was from fiscal year 23-24. Not a lot of COVID impact there, so we're hoping that that's a good actual number to start off of. We're going to assume, hopefully conservatively, 2% annual increases in revenues, 3% annual increases in expenses. So with these assumptions, we built this spreadsheet for each of our work units to provide to our supervisors. Okay, So basically what we did is kind of what I explained, but we've got that column with the 23-24 actuals. We have what 24-25 would have been with a 3% increase. The proposed budget for next year is 3% more, and 2 years from there is another 3%. So this is what was given to all of our supervisors and all for every single line within their budget. Now, the budget you all are seeing tonight groups most of these into larger categories. Like you'll see at the top of that, it says services and supplies. And then it lists water utilities, mowing services, electrical, tree trim, replace, all of these little lines. So the supervisors, when they went through all of this, they came back to the meetings with all of us and said any changes from the proposed numbers that they might want or need. Sometimes that's they know there's an increase or maybe that's not a needed expense anymore. But if they did make a change, we asked them to give us an explanation about why we should treat that line differently than the other lines in their budget. So they all came prepared with that. And then going back to this, I do want to point out, that means that all of our supervisors looked at, I think it's over 40 lines of data just to do their own unit. And so it was a lot of work. And that's why I'm just pointing out, like, it was a lot of data for them to crunch. Additionally, we asked them to update the description of their work unit, and new this time around, we asked them to describe the community benefit that is provided by their unit. So that's new in the descriptions that you have. Finally, we also had them come to us with a SWOT analysis of their unit. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, so we could all talk about it and maybe come up with ideas or commiserate, whatever the situation may be. So I wanted to just stop for a second and say thank you to the staff and the supervisors that put in that amount of time. It was a huge effort, a lot of numbers, but I think it's going to help us really stabilize those budget variances now that we're in them. Like, I know there's still issues, but we don't have that kind of fluctuation from COVID and changing use and restrictions of our facilities. So I can stop there before I dive into what's actually in the budget if you have any questions on staff process. Okay, cool. All right, so kind of starting over, what's actually in the proposed operating budgets? We had two kind of challenges we wanted to focus on. So one, like we said before, is post-COVID budget stabilization and recognizing that our capital funds were decreasing as we've been telling you all. So the goals in that were to maintain our current levels of service. We're not trying to expand our programs or do anything, but we want to make sure that in these changes, we're maintaining our current programs and staffing and servicing levels. But we also want to identify opportunities for savings or outside sources to fund any capital projects because we know that's a need and we have less of those sources available. So those are the goals in developing the operating budget. This is in your packet. It's the historical kind of graph of our general fund revenues over time. So we're not suggesting any dramatic increases in the revenue, but a general increase. What I wanted to point out to you on this is the last two, well, for both of these proposed budgets, there's a little green slice on top there, then that is the potential use of our 115 trust money, where we authorize up to $1 million every year to be pulled down from that trust to pay for the increased CalPERS contribution as part of that fresh start amortization plan that we're on. So that's what that new little section is. This is if you wanted to break it down by ratio, by percentages. And so I wanted to point out that by using this kind of more stabilized structure, even though the proposed budget is increasing from 3.8 in year one to 33.8 to 34.6, the percent of property tax is still 61%, rec revenue is still 20%, other revenue is 16%, and our transfers, which is that transfer from the 115 trust, is at 3%. So we're maintaining the same level of reliance on our revenue sources for both years. Next, on the general fund expenditures, you'll see, again, we're budgeting for a slight increase in that. I did want to point out, you'll see the transfers, which is gray on this sheet, for the prior years looks a lot bigger than what we're budgeting. And that's because we don't budget transfers to our reserves. So you'll probably remember every year I come to you with reserves, policies and updates, and we talk about, do we want any of our savings from the year prior to go towards pension or capital or anything like that? But we don't budget for that. That's a discussion that we all have at year end. So that's why the prior year numbers for transfers are so much bigger than our budgeted year ones, because we don't budget for those transfers. So just want to explain that because I know it looks weird. The other thing I wanted to point out in here, and you probably noticed going through the sheet, is a lot of the increase in expenditures, especially if you look by unit, is going to be your salaries and benefits increases. And that's directly because of the CalPERS increase in the contribution for the amortization plan with the Fresh Start. So a huge portion of that is the UAL. And then there's still that lingering impact of the class and comp for folks that got put down more than 2 steps in their like if they were at step 5 before and they got put step at 3, they still have another year to increase. So the cumulative impact of the continuing rollout of the class and comp plus the CalPERS is the reason for that increase in the salaries and benefits. And I think you see it probably across the board. There's a big jump, but that's why we have the 115. So this is also the breakdown. Again, I wanted to show the stabilization. Both years, even though it's an increasing total, rec is at 41%, parks is at 38%, management services at 15%, and transfers are at 6%. Okay, so here's the sample work center budget summaries. So I picked Dos Santos, but I don't expect you to read that. I mostly am just gonna guide you through how to look at these pages. First, it's the graph with the historical information. The blue is salaries and benefits, the green is services and supplies, purple, if there is any there, is the little bit of capital that we're doing with general fund. Again, most of our capital is not in this fund, and that's what Andrew's gonna be talking about next time, but if you see a purple, it means it's probably a small project that we can fund with the general in there. The next section below is literally the numbers that match that chart, along with the full-time employees that are assigned to that unit. Just below that is the work center description. So this is how staff describe what they do. It's also where they explain if there is kind of a weird number in the budget above, they'll try to explain it there. And then finally, new this year is where the unit drafted what their benefit to the community is. So that's how to read the individual work unit pages. I'm not going to make you go through all of them with me, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I can stop there with general fund, or I can move on to equipment. I don't know how is easier to manage.
Director Huffer, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if this is the appropriate place, and I'm not going to say that it occurred across the board, but I was struck by, more often than not, the comparison of the 24-25 budget with 24-25 estimated. Where does that estimated come from? Is that just year to date?
So it is a pure calculation. So it's the year to date applied as though every month would be the same. So the year to date for 10 months plus 2 more. And I can explain that better, but so it's not as though every single line was scrutinized to give a best estimate for the rest of the year. It's just a pure math calculation that the system spits out where it says, hey, we estimate this line is 5,000 a month, so you're going to have 10,000 more for the rest of the year, and then it adds it up together. So it's just a pure calculation, but it's not perfect.
Okay, because there's, again, not the case for necessarily for every work center, but my impression was in more cases than not that the at least on the expense side, that expenses the budgeted were higher than the estimated for most of the work
Yes,
centers.
we have very good staff that make sure they stay in their budgets. And so that's the reflection of
That's a
that.
good thing.
It's a very good thing. Yes.
Thank you.
And Rochelle is pointing out that summer's coming up, so they're gonna get spent.
Taking it away from me. Revenue and expenses will come for summer in the next couple months, and it will be higher than most other months. So there's a timing thing there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? I do have a question on your work center format here,
Oh, sure.
and that has to do with the number of employees. you list the number of full-time employees.
Mhm.
And I know we have part-time employees. How and where are those accounted for?
So the budgets for those are included in the salaries and benefits lines. So the line, let me go back, up there does include dollars for those bodies, but we don't have a set number. They're put in as kind of as a lump sum because it varies throughout the year.
That was gonna be my next question,
Mhm.
is I presumed they were included there. And I know just stating a number of part-time employees does not really equate to a salary reference.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering is, I'm just looking at this from trying to ascertain where is the connection from the number of employees to the salary figure? And if we're only listing full-time without part-time, we know there's part-time there, but it's not stating that there are part-time. You know, how can
Mhm.
we at least have a line item that states there are part-time? And if, you know, maybe there's a certain number that are allocated for that particular work center, and I know you're gonna have some part-timers that are very small part-time and some that are very large part-time. Or could you do it with like a full-time equivalency or something? How can you somehow identify that there actually is a part-time employee figure in there somehow?
So I don't think I could give you a good number of part-time employees. It just wouldn't be accurate. What we do have is under that salaries and benefits category, there's a whole bunch of different line items. There are two line items that are the main ones that are for our part-time employees. So I could maybe add those together and just say, this is the amount that's for part-time employees, if that's helpful. That's something I could just add another line if you want.
For me, I would find that helpful,
Okay.
especially when we do have the salaries listed there,
Sure.
salaries and benefits,
Mhm.
and then full-time employees. And I think maybe there should be a, you know, whether it's, you just carve out and say, well, that's the what is the full-time employee's salaries and benefits? And
Mhm.
then you could have another line which says part-time salary benefits.
So I can't do that. What happens is because some of the part-time employees do have CalPERS benefits, our CalPERS line is one line for everybody.
Hmm.
So I can't really split that up into those things. But I could give the kind of what the direct salary to part-time employees would be. I think that's the best number I could give
Okay.
you.
Well, I would take what I could get,
Okay.
and then I'll just ask for more next time. Thank you.
Sure. Right. Any more on general fund before I dive into equipment? Okay. Back. All right, so equipment, again, don't try to read it on the screen. It's just so you know which page to look at. So the equipment replacement fund, we don't treat this like everything I just said. So we're not assuming 3% increases or anything like this. This is based on three different tracking sheets that we use for recreation, fleet, and IT, where we identify all of the equipment that we have its expected useful life, we know what we think we're gonna have to pay for it when it does come up for replacement, and we calculate the annual depreciation amount that we need to contribute to this fund. It's always transferred from the general fund to this fund so that it is available once we've saved up enough and that equipment needs to be replaced. So that's why you'll see just the columns on the graph there are kind of all over the place. There's no trend. It depends on when the equipment's going to wear out and we need to replace it. Also included in your packet, but I'm not showing it on there, is the list of what we're scheduled to replace this year. It might vary a little bit, but it's more to give you an idea of what's coming up in the next year. So that's the equipment replacement. Then we have Rancho Conejo. Again, don't try to read on the screen. We include both the revenues and the expenditures on one page. We have the annual engineers report, which Andrew will talk about. And as I said before, it's primarily used for basic operations. Small amounts are set aside for capital and gets matched with general fund contributions or funds from the district-wide assessment. Dos Vientos, similar story to Rancho Conejo, but a little bit bigger. And then finally, we've got the district-wide assessment. Again, there's an engineer's report. This is kind of the reverse, where a very tiny portion of that is used for basic operations. And the bulk of this is set aside for our capital program that Andrew's going to talk about. The capital numbers that are in there are placeholders from the last CIP that we did. And so once Andrew does his presentation on the capital program for you all, then I'll update those numbers. But for now, I'm just focusing on the operating ones for all, for Rancho, Dos Vientos, and district-wide. So with that, the next board meeting is all capital. It's Andrew's show. And then after that, once we have any feedback from you or the public, based on our proposed operating, our proposed capital, we'll merge them all together for a final review with the first meeting in June, and then final adoption, hopefully, with the second meeting in June. So that I'm available for questions.
Thank you. So do I just start down the line or just look for hands? People have questions. I'm not sure that everyone has a question. Right, Director Buss.
I have to say, this is one of the most beautiful budgets I've ever seen. I love it. I love the graphs. I was like, wow, this was like put together so well. It's so much easier to read than if we just had like, oh,
Well, thank you.
The
I'll take credit
actual
for the
financial
graphs, but
statement.
Shar and marketing made everything else look pretty.
yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it just makes it so much easier to digest this information. So good job.
Thank you.
Director Hupper.
Just a comment to go back on the capital, the capital replacement. I don't know if it's because the people in recreation are so detail oriented that they, practically every paperclip or something is listed there. The parks and planning, yeah, we need some trucks. IT, we need some computers. Recreation, yeah, we got this huge long list of things. So you guys spent a lot of time detailing what exactly you're anticipating over the next 2 years. So congratulations. I'm gonna take a deep breath.
Director Cuthbert.
I just wanted to say, as always, a little bit like what Director Buss said, your presentations are so beautiful. I mean, they are really stunning, and your graphs are very easy to understand. I really appreciate that. And then I'm wondering, I was interested, which had kind of not much really to do with this, and maybe it was one of those mistaken papers, but did the staff take a strengths finder survey for the management team? I thought that was very interesting, and I thought we should take one for the board and see if we all have different strengths of where they are. Like what, this doesn't really have anything to do with the budget, but what's this all about on page 110?
I'd be happy to tell you all about it after the meeting,
Okay.
unless there's
That's
other.
part of the copier gremlin that we don't know what
Okay.
happened.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. So you could tell me after the meeting, but I was really quite taken with it, looking at what everybody's strengths were. And then we even had you and James seem to have a couple of them, I guess. Anyway, all right, so the gremlin, but I was intrigued by that. But again, thank you. And this is a lot of work, the budget, and I'm not a real numbers person, so I really appreciate you and your staff for putting this all together and for keeping us on budget. Because people do ask me all the time about our expenditures. And I always say, we're audited, we are on budget. We have savings, we can pay for pensions, it's all done. We've even had auditors come and say that we have the best budget and the best books they've ever seen. And I know that that's not just, happening randomly. I know it's a lot of effort you're putting into it. So thank you very much for making this easy for the board.
Thank you. And a lot of credit to not only my staff, but all the staff that worked really hard putting these budgets together. So thank you.
Yes, Director Roscoe.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just really wanted to, similarly to what's already been echoed, just say thank you so much for the amazing effort that you guys put into the details of the budget. I know what it's like to put together a budget, maybe not one that is this size, but after hearing about all of your meetings and just the highlighted transparency, I appreciate it. I also really enjoyed the benefit to the community portion. I think that adds some additional color and context and helps tell the story behind the numbers. So thank you for that.
I have a few questions.
Of course.
On page 66,
Oh, you got to give me a title with our page conundrum.
okay, this is the Risk Management Work Center.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm on the old 66. I don't know what the new one is or if there even is one. Just in the comment section down below refers to the constructive receipt tax issues. Can you explain that for me?
Oh, yes. So, so constructive receipt is an issue with the IRS where they want us to report on the W-2s that we give to everybody. Not necessarily what people were paid. I'm trying to think of I'm going to give an example to best describe constructive receipt. So when we have, let's say, a grounds worker that works overtime on a certain day, they can choose whether or not they want to be paid overtime or bank that time to be used as time off as comp time on another day. The IRS does not like that being carried over into multiple fiscal years. I mean, multiple calendar years, I'm sorry. So what's now happened is we now have to manage to make sure that any comp time that is accrued in the calendar year is then paid out by the end of the calendar year. And that is a different calculation for every single individual that works for us. So in December, with the last paycheck of every year, we're figuring out how much money we have to cash out so that there's not a tax issue with the IRS. So that's the constructive receipt issue.
Sounds like that should be an IRS problem and not a CRPD problem.
So I would love to agree with you, but our council has advised otherwise.
All right, thank you for clearing that up. Okay, now, regarding the Hillcrest Center, Work Center. I have page 68, I don't know where you're at. It would be the next, flip over the page once, to the right.
Work in management. I thought it was.
I just was trying to clarify. Because as I was reading again in that first top little narrative paragraph, it says it provides for operation of the Hillcrest Center as the district's administrative headquarters, including building maintenance and utilities. But down below talks about operation and maintenance of the Hillcrest Center as a district's administrative hub. So I'm trying to clarify, is there an actually separate line item for administering the administrative hub part of the Hillcrest Center as opposed to the Hillcrest Center for the Arts activities?
So the Hillcrest Center for the Arts expenses are in the rec budget line for, what do we title it? Cultural? Or, yeah. So that's the Hillcrest Center for the Arts. This is just the administration part.
Okay, but I'm still trying to question if there's some operational activities that affect the entire structure. You know,
No.
air conditioning, for example, I know that's a capital type
So
of thing.
the city, and you might remember when Jamie was here presenting it, they prorate a lot of that based on our use for the administration versus the HCFA.
Yes,
So that's the only separation there. But no,
Okay.
there's not something that globally handles the whole
okay,
building.
Yeah, and it's proportionate to the square footage.
Yeah.
okay, all right. I was just trying to grasp, because I know there's some different work centers and how that all fits together.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, now, okay, on my page 72, work center is the administration for parks and planning. And again, in that first narrative, in the second sentence, it says the Parks Division is divided into 4 work centers: grounds, building, fleet, and Costco Rangers. But I also see some listed for administrative and planning and development. So are those not included here? Are there actually 6 work centers, or are there only 4? How does that work?
Yeah, so yes, technically there would be 6. So it basically what that narrative was saying was the administration oversees those 4 field work centers, similar to how like Rochelle's administration would be overseeing her teams that then oversee their work centers. So, but technically, yes, there would be 6 overall
Okay.
work centers under a whole division. But then that specifically administration, myself, as well as some other staff time, oversees
Okay.
those 4 field operation units.
All right, I
Yeah.
got it.
Versus like Parks and Planning, they're only Parks and Planning. They don't oversee anything out in the field.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
And we
thank
can
you.
make that more clear for the next
Yeah,
one.
thank you. Okay. And then regarding the Costco Work Center, it's on page 77 of the original packet. Just for my clarification, and I know because this is, we have some shared expenses with the city for Costco expenses. Are the numbers we see here 100% of the total Costco budget, 50% splitting half and half, or is just the CRPD portion that we track that then goes into the bucket that split 50% with the city?
The last thing you said. So
Okay.
this is just the CRPD expenses. Then the city kind of adds what their expenses are,
Yes.
and then they split it in half and reimburse us for what we
Gotcha.
need.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. And then on page 83, this is the Community Engagement Work Center. In the narrative, it refers to the marketing department, but the work center is called Community Engagement. Is one a working title or an official title, or how does that work?
Yeah, we call it community engagement, but they do the marketing and the reservation, and the registration. They do those portions of it.
So,
yes.
so the marketing department is kind of like under the umbrella
Of
of
community
Okay,
engagement,
I
yeah,
thought they
'cause-
were referring to one and the same here. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. So the work center names are fixed in our system. So if I change them, I lose the history.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, so that's why they're there.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right. Moving on. Okay, on page 91, this is in Rec and Community Services, the Sports Work Center. In the first narrative section, it says, budget reflect transition of part-time staff to full-time. And I see we have full-time employees 3 to 4. Is that all it's referring to? Is that there once was a part-time employee that is now a full-time employee?
Yes, over time, we've put not the Andy, the Kylie position, who does all the field registration, is now a full-time position.
Okay.
And you guys approved that a year
Okay.
or so ago.
All right, thank you. Okay, I got that one. Actually, just to make kind of a point here. On the Youth Outreach Work Center. This goes back to my request for information regarding part-time employees. I believe all the youth outreach employees are part-time, is that correct?
That is correct. We just hired a 4th part-time, so we have more boots on the ground now.
Okay. And so in doing so, it shows, in essence, we have no employees that are full-time, and yet we have a nice salary and benefit package. So it's just like, okay, we got to have somewhere to document that we do have employees here, which is why I'm kind of asking for that part-time identification to kind of fill in that gap. And that's all the questions I have for this. Thank you for helping me to clear that up. Yes, Director Huffer?
Not so much a question as just a comment, and perhaps it's because there are so many work centers in recreation and community services, but this is just a personal observation. I found this page very difficult to track, make sense of, either a pie chart or a bar chart. But Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I flipped back and forth between pie and that, and the pie print was so hard for me to read that I went to that, but I'm happy to go back. Whichever is more,
Okay, just
they've got a
right.
lot of sections.
Say, I understand there are so many centers,
Hmm.
but I really had a hard time making heads or tails of that. so
Gotcha.
Just personal preference.
Any other questions? Yes, Director Cussworth?
So I took the new one out of the folder and I put it in here and I left the old one at home. Are they exactly the same? Because I have no page numbers and I had a hard time following. I mean, should I go home and out of my recycle, put it back in, or what? Where are we?
I can answer that. I have found the gremlin. He's been murdered.
Oh,
But that copy that you have was made yesterday, so it's in the right order and everything appears correct. But it wasn't part of the original packet, so it doesn't have page numbers on it. But it would be the correct one to put in your final packet for posterity.
okay, so the one that I have without page numbers is accurate. And it's
Yes,
in the correct order.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry for all the trouble.
No, no problems. If Director Nichols hadn't been speaking, I would have probably been fine. But it was me trying to find what he was talking about that I had the problem, and I didn't know if I had the correct copy or not. So,
Thank you for clarifying that. I asked the same question too, so thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, this item is for the board to consider and provide input to staff. So we've had our questions answered. Was there any input to provide to staff aside from what we've already done? Okay, no further board. I see nobody from the public here. Is there anyone online from the public wishing to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. And there's no board input other than what you've heard. So we will continue this process until next meeting where we will get the capital version.
Yes, thank you all.
Okay, thank you for the detailed, and I was only envisioning in my mind I don't know if this is Excel, but the Excel worksheets that are all interrelated to make this happen, and that's quite impressive, so thank you. Okay. That takes care of deferred items. Items for discussion, we have none. That brings us to new items. If the clerk would care to introduce item 9A for us, please.
Sure. Item 9A, consideration of resolution 0125-A for landscaping maintenance district LMD 92-1, Rancho Conejo, preliminarily approving the engineer's report for 2025-2026, declaring intention to provide annual levy and collection of assessments, and setting time and place for public hearing.
Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Director Mooney.
Thank you, Chair Nichols, members of the board. As you're aware, we do have annual assessments. We'll be looking at each one separately for the intent to levy resolution as well as a proposed change for all three. But just generally speaking, we have these three assessments to support maintenance and operations, as well as for Rancho Conejo and Dos Vientos, a portion of our capital. And our district-wide, it's heavier, as Melissa showed in her graphics. However, specifically for Rancho Conejo, this assessment was assembled because of the expansion of the city, right? So as Rancho Conejo got developed, it currently has over 1,200 total benefit units in the district. And so there was a need to us to be able to provide an additional park site. That park site is Rancho Conejo Playfield. So that's over a 12-acre park site, nearly a 13-acre park site, as well as 1,800 acres of open space. And so this assessment helps supplement general fund to be able to provide that park space. This assessment is a special assessment due to there is from a proximity standpoint, from a view shed standpoint, and access and usability of a park site in this assessment area for those folks who live or own parcels within the Rancho Conejo development, right? And so this was formed back in 1998. There is a max on the assessment. It's a 5% max increase every year. Typically, we're in, there's a range. We can be anywhere from 1% to about 3% is the kind of typical range of an increase every year. That's definitely balanced with, we're not just kind of turning it all the way up to the top to benefit just to pay for our maintenance through that assessment. As I mentioned, we do supplement with our general fund. So the recommendation tonight is a proposed increase for it. So it's looking at a $4.39 increase per parcel, or per benefit unit. The adjusted increase is about 3.11%. Included in your packet is an a historical annual summary, and that's on page 154 of your packet. And you can see on that chart dating back to fiscal year 98, 99, it provides that range. So you can see it does range from year to year, obviously depending on economics with the consumer price index. We utilize that as a market measure. And then also we compare it to the cost of actually having to operate a playfield, operating a community park in the Dos Vientos, as well as neighborhood parks in the Dos Vientos assessment. And so you can kind of see the history outlook there. As I mentioned, we're capped at a 5%. To be able to assess there. So there has been past years that it's been varied, but typically it's around a 2 to 3% increase annually. It dips and then has increased over that in time. This would be currently we would have an assessment on the property as 24-25 rate. So if the board chose not to proceed with this year, we would have a net loss of about $5,300. So instead of covering it through the assessment, I would have to go down the hall and ask Melissa for an additional $5,300 to be able to pay for Rancho Conejo maintenance and operations, as well as the small capital program that we have to be able to supplement that. And so that's Rancho Conejo. As I mentioned, this is just a proposal. It's an intent to levy. So we would be returning in June to actually make the levy on the district. We would be doing a public notice on that in the newspaper for standard protocol, just like every other year. So with that, I'm available for questions for the Rancho Conejo assessment.
Thank you. You have questions from the board?
I have a comment.
Yes, Director Buss.
I think that, as a citizen who pays property taxes in this area and several buildings, I would rather have someone assess me smaller over 2 years than skip and then a big one. So I think that's my personal opinion on it. I think that this is a good idea to go forward with it being 2 small amounts over 2 years. So thank you for proposing that.
Director Huffer?
I've basically looked at these 3 items, 12 years, 13 years, something like that. So I'll be perfectly honest. I don't read every word of every page. Mea culpa, but it strikes me for both Rancho Conejo and Dos Vientos, you refer to the percentage increase based on CPI, but I find that a little bit misleading because that is not the percentage increase that you're actually proposing. In the case of Rancho Conejo, you mentioned the 3.11% change in CPI, and that's what affects the maximum assessment rate. There is no maximum assessment rate for the district-wide, but for both Rancho Conejo and Dos Vientos, there is. For Rancho Conejo, the actual increase from 24-25 to 25-26 is 3.79%. For the Dos Vientos, it's actually slightly lower, it's 3.04%. But I find that a little bit, maybe not misleading, but certainly not accurate when you're quoting 1% figure and the actual percentage is something else.
So to follow up on that, yes, you are correct. There's a maximum of 5%, and that is based on CPI. So we can't go above that. However, we do have a bank. So if it's extremely high one year and it's over 5%, we can take that, whether it's a fraction of a percent or a whole percent, and use that for later years. And so we do kind of have that balance of being able to, if we can't increase it an X amount, to be able to cover the true cost of the district to maintain that park, that we can use that bank in later years. And then the district-wide assessment actually does have a max. So it's a max of 3%. So we can't, and it's just when these were enacted with the developer and working with the city as well as the district at the time, that's what was set based on what these because it's 2 landscape maintenance districts, and then it's actually a park and recreation assessment district is the district-wide. So they're very similar. They fall under the same act, but however, they are made up slightly different, but the intent of all 3 is very similar. So again, with the CPI, it's to max it out, not necessarily like the true cost of that increase isn't exactly based on CPI. That is just the engine or the allowability to meet that max is based on CPI. So just to clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, this staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution. Do I have a motion to adopt, or yes, Director Cuthberth?
So I'll say that we adopt resolution 050125-A, preliminarily approving the engineer's report for 2025, 2026, declaring intention to provide the annual levy and collection of assessments and setting the time and place for the public hearing, and that it be read in title only and all other readings be waived.
Thank you. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Director Buss. Okay. Would you mind reading the title only for us, please?
Resolution number 050125-A, a resolution directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring intention to continue assessments for fiscal year 2025 to 26, preliminarily approving engineer's report, and providing for notice of hearing for the Conejo Recreation and Park District Landscape Maintenance District number 92-1, Rancho Conejo Playfield.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that moves forward. Thank you. All right, and Madam Clerk, would you please read in item 9B for us?
Item 9B, consideration of resolution 050125-B for landscaping maintenance district 94-1 Dos Vientos, preliminarily approving the engineer's report for 2025 to 2026, declaring intention to provide annual levy and collection of assessments, and setting time and place for public hearing.
Thank you. And again, Director Mooney.
Thank you, Chair Nichols, members of the board. The Dos Vientos Landscape Maintenance District was formed in 96. Again, similar makeup, it's 5% max. Staff is proposing an increase of $10.08 on this for a $341.23 assessment rate. Again, if we stuck with last year's rate and didn't make this increase, there would be a $22,881 shortfall in it. So again, we would have to supplement that cost to be able to maintain the parks. We do have 4 parks, so this includes Dos Vientos Community Park, Del Prado Playfield, Dos Vientos Neighborhood Park, and Sycamore Neighborhood Park, as well as there's 1,205 open space acres as part of this assessment district. So that's what that would be paying for to maintain. On page 200 of your packet report is the historical summary of the Dos Vientos assessment for reference. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Have questions of Mr. Mooney? I do have one question, which I meant to ask last time, but it applies to both of them. The reference here is that this is a partial assessment for the overall maintenance and operating costs. So it's just for, the maintenance and operating costs for that. And the differential is between the ad valorem property tax revenue and the actual cost to maintain it. So I presume then that there's some anticipation of what those property taxes will be for revenue for you to come up with this calculation of, as to what the balance is that's due, so to speak, in order to cover that. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yep,
The formula basically?
correct.
Okay, all right, just wanted to clarify that. All right, thank you. All right, if there are no questions, is there a motion to approve? Again, this is a resolution. Right, okay, Director Huffer?
Since everyone was just jumping after that one, I'd like to move that we adopt resolution 050125-B, preliminarily approving the engineer's report for 2025-26, declaring intention to provide the annual levy and collection of assessments and setting the time and place for the public hearing, that the be read in title only, no future readings.
Thank you. Do you have a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, Director Roscoe, thank you. All right, would you please read the title for us?
Resolution number 050125-B, a resolution directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring intention to continue assessments for fiscal year 2025 to 26, preliminarily approving engineer's report, and providing for notice of hearing for the Conejo Recreation and Park District Landscape Maintenance District number 94-1, Dos Vientos Ranch.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, would you please read into the record item 9C?
Consideration of Resolution 050125-C, directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring intention to levy assessments for 2025 to 2026, preliminarily approving engineer's report for district-wide park maintenance and recreation improvement district 62-1, and providing for a notice of public hearing.
Thank you. Again, Director Mooney?
Thank you, Chair Nichols, members of the board. The district-wide assessment was formed in 2001. It is has a max of 3%. What's being proposed tonight is $1.32 increase to that from last year. Doing the math, we would have a shortfall of $67,594 if we didn't increase. One caveat to this is any Dos Vientos and Rancho Conejo benefit unit that's paying those two assessments actually pays 50% of this assessment. So they would be paying half of 4536 for this year if this got enacted. So just a note there, because they are already paying their share for their localized parks. That was something that was worked into the district-wide assessment back in 2001, that they would get a 50% discount on the district-wide assessment. And then again, on page 254 of your report is the historical summary. And then just really highlighting for next meeting, we'll be looking at capital. And this district-wide assessment is really the engine that helps us be able to either renovate, replace, or build new park facilities. And so this is a very important fund for parks and planning, as well as our maintenance and grounds folks to be able to maintain the parks that we have through the system. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Questions for Director Mooney? I did have one question, but it's based on your recent comment there regarding the critical nature of this assessment for capital projects. And I know we've got some aging properties, facilities. Is there a significant impact to this fund being able to be used for capital improvements as opposed to capital maintenance?
Depends on how you want to cut up the pie. So in my time with the district, something that has been instilled in me through my predecessor was to really assess the need to be able to make sure we're making it maintainable. So as a project manager or supervisor, you wouldn't necessarily be doing something that we wouldn't be able to maintain. However, we work in maintenance features to the development of the park. Like for example, with the skate park, for instance, right? We know it's going to get beat on. The kids and the community is going to love it, right? So we beef up we beef up the fencing, we address the fencing when we have large work happening. And so it's kind of a give take between what is truly maintenance and what is truly new type of work, right? When we're doing special capital projects. And so that's kind of ingrained, and that's something that I've been ingraining through in our field staff, as well as like my administrative team, right? With the new planner on board, new superintendent. And so working through that, but then again, it's a balance. The assessment by no means would ever pay for all of our maintenance, and by no means would it pay for all of our capital, right? So again, it's that balance of it. And so that's where it's the factor of trying to incorporate that type of maintenance tact into our capital projects. So.
Very good. Thank you. I know it's a constant challenge, but thank you. Okay, if there's no questions, again, this is another resolution. If anyone care to make a motion for a staff recommendation.
I'll make a recommendation that we adopt resolution number 050125-C, directing preparation of the engineer's report declaring the district's intention to levy assessments for 2025 through 2026, preliminarily approving the engineer's report for district-wide park maintenance and recreation improvement 62-1 and providing for a notice of public hearing. May all future readings, to be read in title and only. And all future readings to be waived. That was horrible, sorry.
That's exactly what she was going to say. Yeah. And thank
Amen.
you for making that motion, because I was going to start calling people by name to
No,
do that.
So long.
Do we have a second for that?
I'll second
All right,
that.
Director Cussworth. All right, would you please read the title, Flores, Madam Clerk?
Resolution number 050125-C, a resolution directing preparation of the engineer's report, declaring intention to continue assessments for fiscal year 2025 to 26, preliminarily approving engineer's report, and providing for notice of hearing for the Conejo Recreation and Park District, Park Maintenance and Recreation Improvement District.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item 10, reports and announcements. We've got a packet. There's some items in here in the packet. Are there any questions or comments from the board on any of these items? All right, seeing no hands, I have a couple questions. These are very, very easy though. First, on our Recreation Division highlights, it makes reference to sponsors of the flashlight egg hunt, which the grandkids thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you for doing that. I went as a grandparent for that one, not as a board member. But I just noticed it says, sponsors for the events, and it lists the different events. And I presume these were different sponsors at different locations, because I think there was the Battery Plus was there at the Thousand Oaks Center. And I just was wondering, how does that sponsorship work? I mean, do you try to recruit them? Do they say, hey, we'd like to be a sponsor? Obviously, they had a table there. So what's the give and take for a sponsorship of something like that?
So we actually have a whole sponsorship packet that marketing does. And then our staff out in the field have people and contacts that they know through their communities that they'll ask them if they want to be sponsors. And it's the same with any of our events. Marketing's actually been fine tuning that process so that folks can become sponsors for multiple events at higher levels. And then they get social media posts, they get thank yous in our program guides. There's different levels that get different types of thank yous when we can thank them. And then I believe for Flashlight Egg Hunt, the sponsors got to pick where they wanted to go.
Okay.
So,
Oh, nice.
so
Okay.
every place kind of had a different representative there, but they all were sponsors of the whole event at
Oh,
all
okay,
5
okay.
sites. Yeah.
All right. No, I thought that was a nice addition. I spoke to the vendor there. Of course, it's just around the corner from me and I go there regularly, but it's nice to see him there. That was nice. And I had a question regarding the quarterly capital improvement program. And this was actually it's more for Director Mooney. on the phase one improvements for the Conejo Community Center and Park. Just a quick update on when that might be happening. And then also, is the baseball field fence extension part of that? And if so, is the Little League participating? And the last question is, how far is the extension?
So baseball field first, I'm going in reverse. That was not part of phase one.
Okay.
That was, I don't want to say an extra, but an extra as part of the project when we did our outreach process. Top of my head, I want to say it's about like 15 feet or so.
Okay.
And it's, and just to, if you remember Director Nichols and the board, the intent of that is it's like an odd corner on the baseball field, like when you look at it from aerial view,
Yeah.
and it limits what age division they can play there because of the measurements they need for outfield for Little League. And so then it makes it more available for other folks to use, which we just like lights and other availabilities on our properties. That's good, right? Making it more available for more folks to use. So, and then big picture, it was like you were in my office this afternoon. I sat down with our new planner. She's 3 weeks in now. Part of the onboarding process is that's an important project that we need to handle as far as getting the parking lot worked out and getting the restroom part of the phase one replaced. And so we have a 99.9% construction set that we are fine tuning with our consultant, and we will be meeting with our parks field staff next week just to kind of get final blessing on any items as far as construction materials and such, and then we'll be submitting for permit. So the goal would be we'd be submitting for permits. If we don't have any major changes or anything, we'd be going out to bidding. And so hopefully, the next couple months would be returning to the board with a bid and hey, start construction. The intent, last year, we were trying to split the projects from phase one, and the overall city planning recommended to combine them. And so we couldn't move forward with phase one work because it was looped into the rest of the major project. But then we were keeping in mind the community events with Rochelle's folks and the concerts. And so we probably wouldn't start work until after Labor Day, regardless of when the work happens. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. And then one final question on the fold out capital projects page, the spreadsheet. There's a line item on fencing and netting at Conejo Creek South Park, and it says matching with ABDG. I'm just wondering who that organization is.
Amateur baseball, I'm messing it up. I knew I was going to. Yeah, amateur baseball development. Thank you. That's what was messing me up. Group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the
Yeah, long time partner at the property, and
okay.
they've helped improve it quite a bit over the years. So
Okay.
And you'll be seeing them come late June with they submitted a grant this year as well.
Oh, very good. Okay. Yeah, with all the acronyms, I didn't recognize that one. Okay. All right. Thank you. I skipped ahead to the capital improvement program, but and there's no other comments and questions. We'll go on to item 11, department reports. Director Mooney, Parks Division.
No report, but I'm available for questions.
Okay, any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the Recreation Division report.
Well, thank you, Chair Nichols. And since I haven't talked today, I'd like to take some time. No, I'm not teasing. A couple of things that are coming up. So the rec van is going out on the 3rd. It's attending an event called Casa Conejo Community Event at Walnut Elementary, which is a group that I believe Jeff Garral is putting together an event. And so we're participating in that. It'll also be at the Chili Cook-Off on Sunday. The therapeutics unit has a special needs vendor fair at Conejo Creek North on the 10th. That should be really good. It's the first one. It's a partnership with the Thousand Oaks Police Department, and specifically Jeremy Paris and Devin have worked really closely, have quite a few vendors and actual sponsors for that event. The Teen Center's doing a glow party. So if you know any teens, on the 17th, there's a glow party there. And then our first concert is going to be at the end of May, and it is DSB, Don't Stop Believin', which is a tribute band for Journey. And there's lots of food options there, 2 desserts, 2 meals, hot dogs, or chef rock and roll. So that'll all be going on. And then I did volunteer at the Friday night bingo at the Global Center, and I am telling you, that is quite the scene. A lot of people, very fun. So if you ever want to play bingo, you should go. Go early. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Questions? All right. Next is the Management Services Division report.
Thank you, Chair and board members. I think you've seen my whole world, so I have no report, but I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the General Manager's report.
Sure. I'll start with the thank you that I often do at the end of the meeting, but like when you get to the point that we're at tonight with the budget, that does in fact reflect a whole lot of hours from everybody, basically everybody at the table, but ultimately and cumulatively ends up through Melissa making sense of everyone else's stuff. So appreciate you all very much for all that work. Kind of going backwards, we did have a really fun and successful Leadership Conejo tour with the Chamber of Commerce group last on the 18th. So it's a couple Fridays ago, just right after our last board meeting. That was one of my favorite days of the year, really. It's fun. We're outside and we're showing everybody what we do, and it's a great day. The next Saturday, there was was the Earth Day weekend. And so we did do a creek cleanup with the Costco Rangers in the Barranca, which was, or near the Barranca, which was a good project. And I think we estimated we pulled out 3,000 pounds of trash in one 3-hour period. It's pretty.
They spent all the money to clean all the stuff out less than a year ago.
You're going to see in the next Costco board agenda, there's a lot more money to spend too. It needs to be spent because it's bad down there. We're getting on top of it, but it's pretty bad. It's where all the runoff enters the natural creek stream area from all the rains for all those years. And we had a rundo infestation that's been eradicated pretty well, but that just means now you can see everything. So it's pretty, we're getting on top of it, but it's a lot of work, and you'll hear about it more at Costco. SB 315, that bill that we spent a lot of time talking about at the last meeting, it actually got shelved for this year. So that's great. The author met a lot of opposition, and we were just one piece of a lot of other agencies weighing in. And so the author, rather than try to even tweak it or fix it, said, I'm just going to pull it back and maybe next year we'll talk about it. But right now we have a reprieve at least. And then as a reminder, on Monday, the Gratitude Circle ceremony is at Conejo Creek North, and we're going to be honoring our own Ed Jones, and Joanne will of course be there, and George Lang, and we'll see both of them at 5:30. And then I will, based on the responses to the questions I got, I think we're gonna have Doug will be the MC. I think it's Ashley and Marissa have Ed, and Chuck and Nellie have George, I think, based on all the responses. So I think that's how we'll do it. And then I'll provide you guys tomorrow. I'll give you a little, some information. And so you'll have some stuff to go from, but we're not going to script it out or anything. You guys know them super well. So it'll be fun. It'll be really nice that night. Aline's been working really hard with her team. The only other thing I want to mention, and just kind of a fun little memory lane thing, is the beginning of 850 Warwick, before we had even a program there, and it was just purely the apartment project that had a lot of overcrowding and complaints and health and safety violations and building and safety violations and gang issues, and the police having gone in there and finally said, you guys are welcome to try to do something here. And that's when we started the homework club. And one of the earliest participants in that, a guy named Wilbert, who eventually did work for us as a rec leader for quite a few years. He gave back quite a bit. He is actually graduating from CLU in May, so it's pretty cool.
Mm. Oh, okay, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's cool.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for the general manager? Okay. All right, with that, we'll go to the director's reports and follow-up reports. I'll start to my right with Director Cusworth.
I should have saved my paper there because I don't really remember much of what I've done the last month. It seems like a long time since I've been here. But one highlight is I did meet with Ty Gutierrez and we had a wonderful discussion and I didn't know her very well, so I was glad to get to know her a little bit and hear about her ideas and her thoughts and her adjusting to the city council. And so that was lovely. I like collaboration. I think it's kind of fun. I run a speaker series at the Stagecoach Inn, and the woman who runs the speaker series at the Global Center comes to my speaker series and then oftentimes has them come to her speaker series, which makes it very nice because I don't really pay the speakers, but she does. So it makes it worthwhile for them to come to my speaker series because then they might get picked up for the other ones. So Richard Foss, who is an expert in Victorian cooking, will be at the Global Center. I guess it's sometime next year. He was just at the Stagecoach Inn. And I guess I've been busy. I've been very busy talking to general managers all about water and sanitation throughout Ventura County, which has really been quite interesting for me. I just had no clue about our water. So this is a whole new thing with being part of Ventura County Special Districts. And I guess that's all I can think of to say right now.
Thank you, Director Orozco.
Thank you, Chair. Let me see. Since our last meeting, I did get a chance to pop by the Arbor Earth Day, which was a lot of fun. I got to see our booth there for the Teen Center, as well as different community organizations. So really, really great event. And then shortly after that, I stopped by the Once Upon a Story at Page Lane Park just to pop in, say hi, and chat with our friends at the library. And then last Friday, I went to the Teen Center for my site visit, and that was very insightful and a lot of fun, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Director Buss.
So I don't have a ton of activity to report, but I do have a grade for, apparently the fourth graders took a tour or a field trip to Wildwood. And the teacher, she was telling me, I was on the Wednesday field trip that went down to the Channel Islands Museum. And the teacher was saying how impressed she was with the docents and the rangers and that they had such a good time. My daughter said it was too much walking. So
This is a soccer player, right?
this is the soccer player. I'm both, you know what? Don't put your daughters on horses because then they refuse to walk on their own. That is the problem. So, but yes, the teacher loved it, and some of the other kids said they loved it. So, just wanted to share that information. Little feedback.
Thank you, Director Huffer.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not a CRPD event, but it took place on the CRPD property. So I also was at the Arbor Earth Day, and it was fun just walking around, talking to the vendors there and running into some people. And it was a good event, a little bit warm, but compared to weather we've had the last few days, actually kind of nice. So that was a good event. And then a few days ago, I went to the chorus, Newbury Park High School and the middle schools and the elementary schools and the chorus concert. And it was really spectacular. I mean, they were doing a lot of my favorite songs. I had a special new version, or I guess an additional verse to It's a Small World. And they actually had, what was the name of the two writers for those songs? But anyway, the son of one of the writers and his uncle did a lot of the Disney movie songs, and they're the ones who did It's a Small World, which I guess that's sort of a special place for me because when I was a kid, the family went back to New York for the World's Fair, and that's where they introduced the It's a Small World exhibition or ride, I guess.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of nice. And I'm embarrassed that I'm blocking on his name, but our former director of the theater,
It's
Scott.
or ours, not the cities, ours.
Yeah.
Scott Buchanan.
Yeah, was at the event that night and had a chance to chat with him briefly, so that was nice. But I love the chorus events. You know, I've been sometimes to the string events, and my daughter played violin and, you know, sat through those. But the chorus is really special, and the little kids, I mean, they have some kindergarten age kids who are standing up there front, and they're just belting their hearts out, and you're watching some of these kids and they're dancing along with the music and just having a wonderful time. So that was a great event.
It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed those as well. Okay, I just was looking at my calendar real quick. On the 18th, I attended a quick tour of the GAC, Global Adult Community Center, with Congressmember Brownlee. And they were doing, the staff was doing a great job. I just can only imagine what Julie was thinking, just with all these facts and figures and information coming at her. It was good to have her and just kind of brag on the facility. And I think she was quite overwhelmed with what it has and what it is, and having to stay out of the way of the bingo players at the same time. So, and then shortly after that, I left for the retirement party for Larry Williams with the Ventura County Fire Department. The reason I mentioned that is he's been with them for decades, and he's always kind of been the enforcer of the brush on Costco lands. And so he said to be sure and pass his thanks to Jim and the staff for their cooperation over the years. But he's retiring, staying on for a little bit to do some special projects, but he's moving on. So we've got a new staff, people coming up behind him. And then on the 25th, I attended the Zoom meeting for our California Association Rec and Park Districts Conference Committee. It's coming up in just a couple of weeks here down in San Diego. And then on the 28th, I had a meeting with our lobbyist team regarding Senate Bill 499. They're trying to prep me. I will be testifying at the Senate Local Government Committee hearing on Tuesday. So I'll be flying up and back for the day. I've never done that before, so it'll be an interesting process. I get a whole 2 minutes, so I'm not going to be testifying that long. See if there's any questions. And I just wanted to thank Jim for his part in that, because I get a lot of questions from the lobbyists, and I just kind of pass them on to Jim. Hey, do you have any answers for me? And he's done a great job with providing me the facts and the figures, and I think we've got a good response. It'll be a good show, and it's not necessarily because of me. I just happen to be the person who's calling, but Jim's done a great job. So thank you and the staff for pulling that together. Okay, so that takes us to item 12, requests for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Do we have any this evening? Okay, we don't. Any items from the public? Anybody waiting in the wings? No? Okay. General Manager, would you care to introduce or at least state our executive closed session?
You'll be pleased to know that we still are not ready for a closed
Okay.
session yet.
All
So
right.
we do expect one next time though. Yeah?
I am hopeful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll hope that takes place soon, but in the meantime, it's nice to have a little extra time. Okay, so with that, I will adjourn our meeting tonight. Thank you. Good night.
7:53.